Okay, so I'm Wally Rakestraw. I'm the Director of Technology Services. I have the pleasure of reviewing for you tonight, as Michelle said, the items that we presented to you last month. We know we presented a lot of information to you and a lot of folks presented to you last night, so we thought it might be easier if I just simply go through these, give you a couple of words of reminder for each one, because I know they're very shortly listed here in terms of number of words. So I'll try to be brief, but I will try to give you a little bit of reminder of what that item was so that when you do go in your breakouts, you won't be trying to hurry and remember what those were. So I'll go ahead and get started. The first priority that you heard about last month was Gerard telling you about our telecommunications and phone system replacement. That's 6,300 approximately telephones throughout the district. We receive anywhere from 15 to 16,000 inbound and outbound calls. And basically those phones, not only are they a legal requirement to have in our instructional and non-instructional areas, but they're also that primary conduit from parent to teacher and for our instructional and non-instructional communications. And this is one of those priorities that even though those years don't exactly match up right, this is a life cycle replacement that when it does occur, we don't expect it to be 3 years, but when it does occur, that equipment life cycles and it has to be replaced. So it's one of those weird ones. Matter of fact, all of these are that kind of get placed in that priority one, but they may actually occur in year 5, but it's to handle end of life cycle, end of life, non-supported equipment throughout our district. That priority was a priority one, was approximately $3.2 million. The next priority that we shared with you last month was our network infrastructure. That was that network equipment, the Wi-Fi, the wired connections. We talked about it being that communication superhighway. It literally is the network that allows our students, our staff, our instructional processes to occur, our non-instructional. We talked about, if you remember, all of our devices connect to that network, including our utilities, HVAC, and those things that maintenance talks about. So it's like almost everyone who talks to us talks about the devices and things that they need to get their job done, even from athletics. Everything sits on that network. And again, this is one of those priorities that is based on, we probably won't do it in 3 years, but the reason it was listed as a priority, if we remember those slides from last month, was that when that equipment reaches end of life, it becomes a we have to replace it sort of thing from a maintenance perspective, from a compatibility perspective. And I like what Mr. Chambers said earlier tonight about the competitive edge of our students and providing what's best for our students. And I think we learned that providing not only communication at any time, anywhere access, but also those network and bandwidth and things to give them access to those instructional resources. So that was a priority one, and that was a $13.2 million item. The next priority, or really the next 4 priorities, are all about student and teacher access to instruction and relevant materials in the instructional process. And we talked a lot about what those existing computer populations and device populations and usable connectivity that we have for students. And we talked about an aging population of devices. And so that first priority, where update campus device inventories, those are existing devices that we have in our district. And I think we shared those large numbers of, Chromebooks and iPads and desktops and laptops and that wide variety of equipment, but it is aged. And we have a large percentage of that equipment that's already out of warranty. It doesn't provide that really consistent experience, equitable access for students. And so that first item was a priority one, again, would probably occur early in this cycle to replace those aged and out of use devices. And that's around $5 million. The next priority is the student devices we talked about, which is a complement to that previous priority. But if you remember, Frank talked about the banding or grade specific target of devices for that consistent instructionally driven experience for students to have access. So I think they talked about Last time, pre-K through 1 might be a certain number of iPads, for instance, as an example, or maybe grades 2-8 might be a certain number of classroom laptops or other types of devices, and so on, all the way through 12th grade. And those are devices that would be in the classroom, readily available. They would combine with the devices we already have and be very much grade level, instructionally driven, targeted devices. And that was a $3.8 million priority. The next priority was to provide teachers mobile devices, relevant devices that match very well with not only what they need to do as teachers and what we learned from digital learning and virtual learning and all of our Zooms and everything, and how that might look like quite different, but also to give them a relevant device that matches very nicely with the instructional process and what students are using. So it's a little different device, but it gives them that mobility and that anytime, anywhere access, and lets them provide rich lessons and rich learning. The next priority was presented on devices for online testing that I think by year 22, 23, and even prior to that, 21, 22, state of Texas is going to require all state STAR, TELPAS online testing. It has to be done online. And we already have self-assessments or district local assessments that we're beginning to do online so that we're ready by that 22, 23. And these were the devices that were established that need those populations that need to be in place to augment the other devices that we've talked about here. So it's kind of a cascading building on itself so that we can meet that mandate and provide reliable online testing for our students. And then that final priority was our strategic replacement cycle. That was, I used the word umbrella, but that was that strategic approach at how do we maintain all of these devices and access for students over time. And so again, it was decided that was a priority 1, but simply because even though that happens over the course of several years, equipment ages at a revolving pace. You know, all of the equipment's not the same age. It's bought over the course of years. So we have to have a strategic replacement cycle that sustains those populations so that we can continue to be competitive and offer the best for our kids. Obviously, that one's the larger of all the numbers. That was the 16 million. And so we broke all of these out so that you could see strategically how each one of these impacts the instructional process and the success of our kids.